Hello everyone, my name is Kathryn Aboya and I'm here with Pons, who is a business coach and keynote speaker. And I had the pleasure of meeting Ray about a year ago, and I was there, yeah? And it was, the feeling that I got was just sort of immense positivity and this ability for him to see everyone in their highest light, which was really encouraging. So I'd like to just jump into the questions.
Sure. And
sort of see where we go with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what made you drop into your spiritual practice or into this realization that you wanted to be this beacon for people to go forward with what they wanted to do?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know that there has been a single experience where I would drop into spirituality. I suspect that for as long as I can recall, I always wanted to be liked, always wanted to be popular, and so it occurred to me that if you help people get what they want to get, then just maybe they'll give me what I want to get, being liked by other people. So I believe that the cynicism of being a typical adolescent, typical teenager, I had a chip on my shoulder, and it was very quickly and somewhat harshly knocked off. And I came to a realization that you just got to start giving out good stuff, because you do get back what you give out. And if we give out a lot of nonsense, we're going to end up with a lot of disappointment and a lot of struggle in our lives. So I don't know that I had an epiphany where I dropped into my spirituality. I think it evolved and continues to evolve this very day.
Okay, so you do, you said that you go to church?
I do,
yeah.
I do. I'm not as regular or as frequent as I would like or as I once was. But I do I do attempt to take a moment to reflect every day. My business practice is based on 3 simple components: think, focus, act. So I try to walk my talk and practice what I preach, and spend time each day thinking about good stuff, thinking about the higher purpose. Going from wanting success to doing it while achieving significance. I know that sounds very Wayne Dyer-ish, but he is a bit of a mentor and a bit of a role model. So I do spend time striving to think about my spiritual component on a daily basis.
And so you feel that you're supported in that respect. Obviously there's, I guess, the one thing that's universal amongst all the religions would be that you're helping yourself, but you're also helping others. And the main thing is to give, just to give and be grateful.
Yeah. You know, my business practice is very much based on what the great religious leaders have been talking about for 6,000 years of recorded history and the millions of years of unrecorded history. And it's a very simple yet highly effective and challenging mantra. Be true to yourself, be kind to others, and don't steal stuff.
Seems very common sense.
Yeah, and yet, isn't that the wonder of common sense? Because it's so darn noticeable, because it just ain't that common.
Yes, I know. And do you think that sort of, if there's someone who's struggling with blockages, and they know that they have something to offer to the world, or maybe they don't know, maybe they fantasize that they have something to offer, but they've been told their entire lives that they're nothing, that they're useless, that they can't accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. And say they're watching right now, what would you say to them?
You know, I was a 4.5-year-old kid starting school for the first time, and in your typical baby boomer class of 45 kids, and Mrs. Mackenzie, as wide as she was tall, as old as God, but without any of his compassion or love
or wisdom.
And I can recall her saying to me, oh, it had to be in the first 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, Pons, you've got a big mouth, you got a bad attitude, you got a chip on your shoulder, and you'll never amount to much.
It's lovely.
I'm not the only one. I'm not the only kid. Every kid is told, no, you can't. Our parents mean well. Our friends mean well. But self-esteem takes a beating from the get-go. Is it any wonder that we get to adulthood with a massive amount of FUDs, what I call FUDs, fears, uncertainties, doubts, suspicions? You know, God don't make no junk. So remind yourself that with all the flaws that we each have, we're not tall enough, we're not smart enough, we're not strong enough, we're not good looking enough. But we're perfect for the role that we've got to play, flaws and all, warts and all. You know, I wish I had biceps like Schwarzenegger. I don't. But the biceps I got are pretty good for Ray. And if they're not, well, too darn bad. I'm just going to have to live with it. So, you know, move on. You weren't intended to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. There was only ever one perfect person walk the planet. And you know, lighten up. Angels fly because they take themselves lightly. Take your role, take your responsibility seriously, but take yourself lightly. Ease up on yourself.
That actually reminds me of a quote, I think it was Gandhi's quote, that said, whatever you do will be completely insignificant, but it's very important that you do it.
Yes, yes.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, and you know, it's just keep executing, just keep doing something.
Do anything, you know, right? Just keep moving, because we're never meant to be sedentary.
Who was it? I think it was Lee Iacocca that said, get all the education you can, get all the knowledge that you can, get all the strategic planning that you can, but damn it, do something. You know, if you do the wrong thing, you figured out one thing that doesn't work, quit doing it. Right. But sometimes when you do something, it can actually turn out to be a real good thing, and it advances you. It makes you feel like you're actively engaged, and you never know, maybe even in charge. And ain't that what everybody wants? To feel love, self-esteem, and control? Yeah. You know, isn't it nice? Because if you don't take control of your own life, you're basically putting that life in the hands of somebody else. And guess what they've got planned for you? Not much.
Well, because they're focusing on themselves, right? Which is what we should be doing. Everyone should be focusing on what they need to do to get themselves to where they need to be.
Yes.
Right? So.
And that's one of the key things. He's a wonderful lawyer, and I'm sure he's got a wonderful practice. But you've probably heard commercials in the GTA along the lines of, he says, and remember, there are no bad questions. With all due respect, there are a ton of bad questions that people ask themselves all the time.
Right.
Things like, how come I never get the breaks? Why do bad things always happen to me?
Which is almost in...
Why don't things work out for me? The brain is a very literal mechanism. If we ask the brain a bad question, It doesn't say, you know what, that's a bad question, I'm not going to answer it. It will come up with an answer. So I work with my clients, and instead of saying, how come I never get the breaks? Instead of asking that question of yourself, ask yourself, what do I need to do differently to get a greater likelihood of what other people will call good breaks?
Right.
Why do bad things keep happening to me? Rather, what do I need to do so that good things are more likely to happen to me?
Right. So repatterning, there's that book, The Brain That Changes Itself, and it showed how there are people with disabilities and all sorts of things that doctors, scientists, whatever would say are incurable. And they showed that just by repatterning or rewiring the brain, they were able to do miraculous things.
Yes.
That we don't even really think are possible.
Yes.
So it's, would you say that what would be the first thing you do when you get up in the morning?
Ache.
Ache?
Ache. I tend to exercise, and Queen Bee, my wife, I idolize her. She's a living embodiment of how exercise is supposed to be. Okay. You get up, you go exercise, and you start the day in a power manner. I've tried to the life of me, getting up and exercising, it just ain't part of my makeup.
I can't do it either.
I love exercising late afternoon, early evening.
Yep.
I'm getting to the point that I don't exactly enjoy it, but I work hard at it. But when I get up the following day, I ache. I hurt.
That means you're doing it properly.
So it takes a little while to kind of ease in. And then because I work from my home, I basically can hit the ground running. You know, I mean, grab a quick coffee, grab my smoothie, and bang, I'm on the computer, I'm on the laptop. I'm either working, I'm coaching with clients, or I'm writing something, or I'm preparing something. So I tend to get right into it for a couple hours. That's typically how I'll start my day.
Okay. So you don't need to do any sort of affirmations or anything like that? Because I think that there's also this idea that you have to, when you wake up, you have to be in this Zen-like state, and that you have these positive affirmations and you tell yourself where you should be going for the day and what should be done. That's not necessarily, I guess it's, we all have our own thing that we work out, right?
Yeah. Over the years, I was a staunch advocate of affirmations. You know, Henry Ford is often quoted as saying, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way you're right. I'm not sure that I believe the first component of that. I know an awful lot of people who think they can, and they just might be operating under a certain delusion. But I am a firm believer that if you think you can't, you're lost before you even get going. So I am a believer in affirmations to say positive things inside our head. One of my greatest mentors is Dr. Stephen Covey, and I had the great privilege of meeting him on a couple of occasions. And when speaking with him, I found it remarkable how he walks his talk. And a lot of the stuff I do is very heavily influenced by the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, obviously, but I'm also a great fan of some of his lesser known works. First Things First, The 8th Habit, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And I have a coaching passport system that I created that is it's a roadmap, if you like. It's a capturing, it's a low-tech, high-touch paper document that we fill in every quarter that outlines the goals, the objectives, the project management, the stuff that we want to get accomplished. I read that every morning.
Okay.
So in many ways, I suspect that is part of the working on my mindset. I'm looking flat at my goals. Read a book a month. Read a book a month. So if I'm feeling lazy and feel like turning on Judge Judy or the People's Court, or you know what? Judge Judy didn't make the list. Read a book did. So sometimes just having those little tricks that you play on yourself. Because Covey said, for minor improvements, a person works on behaviors. For quantum improvements, a person works on paradigms, mindset, thinking patterns. Be careful how you think, because it takes you where your thinking determines.
That's a very important note, because you can get very, very lost in that. I think if you don't have if you had say 10 goals that you wanted for the year, or I guess, say for the coaching passport, would you say that you have, is it broken down into numbers of goals, or how would someone navigate what they want to do with a year, or like you said, the quarters, you break them down into quarters, you start with the beginning of the year. Can you explain how you do that?
Yeah, my system is very much based on the quarterly rhythm. There does seem to be a natural rhythm to every 90 days. There's a reason why the stock market holds its breath waiting for the 5 banks to announce their results. So the old way of what are your life goals? What are the goals that you want to achieve in the next decade? For me, they're so far away that they didn't really give me an impetus that says, so what are you going to do today, hotshot? You know, it's like, I got, 20 years from now. 20 years from now. I mean, you want to be rich at retirement, you got to start putting money away, not when you're 60. You got to start putting it away when you're 25. But when you're 25, it's like, oh crap, that's decades away.
I'll win the lottery. Yeah. I don't have to worry about it.
So I'm a believer in, what are you going to get done in this 90 days? And then the second component, the focus, is don't set a whole ton of goals.
Right, because it's daunting.
I believe in few. Okay. 1, 2, or 3. I call them, they're not just goals, they're wigs. They're wildly important goals.
Okay.
Or bags, B-H-A-G, big, hairy, audacious goals. These are goals that are big enough to excite you, to interrupt your pattern. Everybody's got the whirlwind of the day job, the real work. I mean, those are the things that you got to get done just to stay afloat, right. Just to keep your job, keep your sanity, keep out of trouble. Wigs are those important things separate from the whirlwind. They won't interrupt you. They're not urgent like the day job.
Right.
They are important, and important, if we can make them wildly important, then we've got the impetus to be able to penetrate the whirlwind, to break out of all the clutter. I know I'm not the only person that's ever worked hard for 10 hours on the job. Busy, 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 doing it. And you get home at the end of the day, and my wife says, so how was your day? Busy, 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 doing it all day long. What did you get done? Nothing. And I'm going to work hard, 8 hours tomorrow, not getting it done either.
Even harder.
And before you know it, a year goes by, and we say, holy crap, where did the year go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? And then a year becomes 5 years. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my, I'm 40. This isn't where I expected to be when I was 40.
Right.
And then we get to 50. Oh, this isn't where I expected to be. Sometimes just breaking stuff down into bite-sized 90-day chunks and then get it done. 1 thing, 2 things, get it done. Get it done in business, and then have a separate agenda to get it done in life.
That's very interesting, because I normally don't hear it broken down like that. You hear 3-year plan, 5-year plan, and then I remember writing a 5-year plan I don't remember how many years ago. And then you look at it afterwards and say, okay, I accomplished some of these things. And then some of them I just think, well, that wasn't even relevant. Or it was relevant at the time, but that's not important. That doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. And that's where the cycle of 90 days seems to work so well, because my clients know 90 days from now we're going to redo this.
Right.
And we're going to be able to look at it and say, what on earth did I put that down for? I have no idea what I was thinking of.
Right.
Right? Or, holy cow, why didn't I do that? So you re-energize and say, okay, this 90 days, I got to get that done.
Right.
And one of the reasons I didn't get that done was why? Well, because I had 2 other things on there. So in this quarter, you know what? I'll exercise every day, 1 hour a day, no excuses, no ifs, ands, or buts. That's the one thing that I'm going to do. And that and nothing else. So get that done, and then just maybe 90 days later, that becomes part of the whirlwind.
Right.
Part of your day job, part of your, now it's a habit. You don't have to think about it. You know, it's like breathing. Nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to try to breathe regularly today. You just breathe, right? And sometimes, I know when I'm watching Judge Judy, I'm not watching it because I say, you know what, it would be very beneficial for me, professionally and personally, for me to look at Judge Judy berating people in absolute misery on TV. It's just a habit. I mean, oh, it's 6:30. Oh, you know what? Oh, click. Bad habits we can become victims of.
Right.
You can also become beneficiaries of good habits. You know, happiness is a habit. Success is a habit.
Right.
Reading a book is a habit. If you do it every day,
It becomes a habit.
initially you might not like it, but then after a while it becomes a habit and you start discovering there's some pretty great stuff out there.
There's some amazing
Isn't it
stuff.
so? Yeah,
Oh, there's just amazing
yeah.
stuff.
Oh.
That's what we were actually driving in the car last night, my father, my brother, and I, and he said something about, I don't want him sitting around during the summer just watching TV. I want him to go to camp and do stuff. I want him to go horseback riding. And he said, I'm getting a bit of kickback. You know, they said their kids want to hang out together, and I really need him to be learning new things, because I have one friend, his son is 5 now, and he knows 4 different languages. So I said, I completely agree with you. I heard a quote the other day from someone who said, you know, you never see a commercial about a Maserati because the people who can afford one aren't sitting on their butts watching TV.
That's great.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, who do you go to for spiritual advice or for business mentorship? Who gives you, is it Queen Bee?
I'm very lucky to have, I'm going to say, attracted Queen Bee into my life. She is my coach. And like any good coach, she'll often tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear. And those moments are not, well, they ain't joyful in the moment.
Rip it off.
But she doesn't let it stop her. And she's a vibrant, energetic Latin American. She was born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela. Another lady you may have heard of who was born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, Lorena Bobbitt.
Okay.
I see my wife cutting onions, my eyes water, let me tell you. But so she doesn't mince words. When she ain't happy, Ray ain't happy.
Right.
But similarly, she only ever kicks me in the arse when she knows that I'm not giving it my best, that I'm not trying to fix stuff. You know, as positive as I try to be, there are times that I get down on myself. And when I get down on myself, I have a tendency to get stuck in inertia. I'll throw a pity party. I'll wallow in misery for hours, days, if left to my own devices. She won't let me.
That's good.
She'll be, oh yeah, she's on it. She's like, okay, so it happened. You know, you made a big blunder, you lost your biggest client. Okay, so sad, too bad. Now what are you going to do?
Right.
Well, I'm going to be miserable. Okay, when will I know when you're finished?
Call me.
No, she just says, great. When will I know when you're done? So she'll give me a time limit. You know, she'll say, okay, be miserable for an hour. See you in an hour, and then we'll get back to work.
Well, that's fair.
So she's great.
That's true love.
Oh, yeah. No, it's hard in the moment.
Yeah.
But, you know, most of the time, when other people are right, it really ticks us off. And then we appreciate it later on. Right?
It's the immediate burning feeling.
Yeah.
The resistance.
Yeah.
That comes.
Yeah. And it's a stupid old saying, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. That's very interesting. Do you meditate? And if so, how?
Oh, Lord. You know, I got to tell you, the very first time I meditated, my wife would tell you that if I decide to do something, I go all in.
Right.
I mean, I really do.
So you got the chair, the candles, the thing.
Oh, I
the
did.
Buddha.
I did. The only thing I didn't have was the little bell, the dinger.
Oh,
right?
that's what the problem.
No, I didn't have the dinger, but I had the aromatherapy oils. I'd listened. I mean, this is so long ago. Everything was on cassette.
Oh boy.
That's how long it was. So I did a 12 cassette program. Did 30 minutes a day. So, you know, it took like 2 weeks or so. Man, I was prepared. I had need something to focus on, so I had the candle. Sat down. 3 minutes in, I farted. I was convinced that this meditation just wasn't for me. And in many ways, I don't formally meditate. But I do strive to think, to contemplate. I love Natam Kaur. She is a beautiful melodic singer, and her melodies are haunting. For the most part, I can't understand a word of what she's singing about, but it takes me to a nice place. My wife, Marva, she has discovered some hypnotic tunes available on YouTube. And while she is more formally meditating to that, I'll be reading, but also get caught up in the moment, put the book down. So I don't formally meditate, but I do, especially if I'm getting angry, if I'm getting ticked, I try to notice the triggers that I'm getting angry and take a minute and say, man, you got to take charge of this. You know, getting late to the studio because of traffic, I was getting mad. And you know what? I was going to be a liability on the Down Valley Parkway. So it's like, you can't be angry. Yeah. You know, getting angry doesn't get the traffic to move out of the way.
It possibly takes a couple of years off your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they say, it's all just a movie, really. You know, if you wake up and then you realize at the end of your life it was a video game, and
right.
If you can't pass this level,
yeah.
If you can't fight the demons on this level, how are you going to fight the demons on level 15? Get rid of these ones first, and then let's see where we go from there.
Because you know, as you said, Kathryn, it's all a story. It's all a script. So if you don't like the story, change the story. Create a new script. You know, if you don't like being unhappy, and most of us don't, but we're in the habit of being unhappy. We're in the habit of being miserable. If you don't like being unhappy, try acting as if you were happy and see what might happen. Like just pretend. Pretend to be happy. Pretend to be nice. Pretend to be having a good time.
And it just works.
And eventually it just might catch on.
Well, don't they say that if you smile, if you're feeling awful, just smile, and your brain senses a smile and then it believes it's happy? It tricks you into believing you're okay again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put a big stupid grin on your face, stand up tall and breathe in and just like, I am magnificently powerful, and then try to be miserable with a big stupid grin on your face. You can't do it. But if you drop your head, slouch, slump, you know, hard to get happy, right? So pay attention to your physiology. Pay attention to the crap that's going on in here. And if it is crap, get rid of it. Replace it with some good stuff. And think about your favorite baseball team. Think about your grandkids. Think about the time that you hit a pure 7-iron that landed 10 feet from the pin. Think about the rare occasions that you actually pulled something off brilliantly, and focus on that instead of the other things that didn't work out.
So it's a matter of just detoxing the brain, really.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what would be, do you have a rule in life, or do you have a saying? Is there something, what comes to you?
Yeah, I mean, the rule I live by, and I may well have mentioned it, or I believe I did. My memory, you know, I tend to think by speaking. But I know I mentioned it earlier. Be true to yourself. Be kind to others. Don't steal stuff. Be true to yourself. Trust your instincts. Listen to that quiet inner voice. You know, when my son was 4, I had one of the greatest philosophical moments with him watching The Land Before Time. And the mother dinosaur, with her dying breath, I forget the name of the baby dinosaur, but with her dying breath, she said, pay attention to that quiet inner voice. Sometimes it whispers, so listen closely. You know, there's a lot of wisdom out there where we can go and get advice from other people. But more than anything else, if we can turn inward and trust our instincts, listen to that quiet inner voice. But you gotta pay attention, because sometimes it's getting crowded out by the jabbering of all the parrots. Pay attention, trust your instincts, trust your gut. Listen to the voice of intuition. Be kind to others. Give. You know, be generous. Don't be seeking, don't keep score. I advocate for my business clients that they've got to keep score. Make business a game. Keep a compelling scoreboard is the 3rd discipline of the 4 disciplines of execution. But when it comes to relationships, when it comes to life, don't expect something in return every time you give out.
Right.
You know, I'm a firm believer that when you give out, the universe will bring it back. But it won't bring it back. You know, if I do something for you, it's naive for me to expect, okay, now what are you going to do for me?
Wait, aren't those just like karma points that you build in your karma bank, and then when you need them, you ask for the universe for what you want, and then it comes back anyways?
Yeah.
Is that?
And if it doesn't, okay. A great friend, mentor, a wonderful, I mean, he wasn't a religious person at all, but had a great spiritual side to himself. He was the living embodiment of Kenny Rogers, very handsome man, and he just taught me so much. And he did very, very well in business. And he went back to Mother England, a member of his family, not a real close member of the family, but not outside of the family. They were getting married, and she didn't have, as he would say, they didn't have a pot to pee in. So he paid for the wedding at significant dollars. And during the wedding, thoroughly lubricated by the liquor that Eric Turner was paying for, this guy came over and berated him for not doing enough to support the family. You're so damn rich, you Canadians. You got so much money, and here we are, we're struggling along. He never said a word. I got to tell you, I wish that I had that intestinal fortitude, because if it had been me confronted by some drunk on alcohol that I've paid for, I'd have said to him, hey, hotshot, I'm paying for this damn wedding, you know, smarten up. Eric just wasn't that way. And it wasn't that he had to marshal himself to not say something. It just never occurred to him. He was just a giving soul. He was absolutely brilliant. And I've always, to this day, he's been dead for a number of years now, but to this day I think of him often and strive frequently to try to live up to the highest model that he represented. You know, just in times of confusion, in times of self-doubt, I'll sometimes say, okay, if Eric were here now, if you were playing gin rummy and he was always beating you the way that he always used to, if you asked him to help you with this, what would he say? What would he say? And sometimes that it can be calming.
Kind of like an entelechy.
Yes. Yeah.
We should do an exercise one time with that.
Oh yeah?
Give that a go, yeah. I don't have it with me, but you speak to your entelechy, and your entelechy sits with your younger self, and it goes through an experience that you had when you were young, where you felt that you were powerless, and it asks you to, you know, little Ray, say I'm little Ray, you're present Ray.
Okay.
And then there's future Ray. What does future Ray in 5 years look like? And then future Ray comes in and sort of takes care of both of you, present and past.
Oh, okay.
So that's...
Wow, interesting.
It's a really interesting exercise.
Yeah.
That you just say, okay, well, my enlightened self or my entelechy, what would that person say? Hmm. So,
yeah.
It sounds like you're Eric Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he was outstanding. He was brilliant.
What makes you happiest?
What makes me happiest?
Aching. The ache.
Yeah, you know, I mean, a 3-run homer by one of the Blue Jays, bottom of the 9th, when we're 2 runs down.
Isn't that tonight?
You know, that makes me happy. A great drive right down the middle of the fairway. Putting on shorts that I haven't worn from last summer and finding $20 in the hip pocket. You know, I mean, these are simple little happy things, but I think at a deep core level, I'm happiest when I'm giving a speech and the audience laughs in all the right places. You know, I like to make people laugh. I love it when I get a simple text from my son that says, "Love you, Papa." When I get a call from a client that says, "Ray, you got a minute? I'm struggling with something. I don't know what to do, and I need your help." So again, I like to be liked. I like to be wanted. I like to be needed. You know, so I guess I'm happiest when I feel like I'm making a difference in some small way.
That makes sense, right? You want to feel like you're empowering others.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because it's all about, you know, people don't need to be told, but they usually don't mind being reminded.
Right.
And you can remind them best by asking them, well, if you were able to solve this, what would you do? What would you try? If it was possible to get help from somebody else, who could you count on most? Who do you know that might be there for you?
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a real person. You know, I mean, the number of times that I've called on the wisdom of Winston Churchill. But I've got Winston Churchill's books. You know, I have a piece of Ladro of Winston Churchill in the office. So that when I'm struggling with something, I look at it and say, okay, you can't find the right words for this part of the speech. So if Winston Churchill was stuck and couldn't find the right words for the speech, what would he do? What would he say? And sometimes that silly little trick. Oh, let's try that. Now, that doesn't mean that you steal words from Winston Churchill. You know, somebody once told me, a professional speaker, no, not a professional speaker, but a speaker. He was asked, where do you go to get your ideas for speaking? And his answer was, Reader's Digest. They got great stuff in Reader's Digest. And initially I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Reader's Digest subscription, that's not a lot of money. But then basically, and this is where a dear friend of mine, Bob Gray, he's a no BS guy. And he said, Ray, and it brings me to my third, don't steal stuff.
Right.
When somebody says, if you're a speaker, go to Reader's Digest, steal their stuff and talk about it as if it were your own. That's crap. No, come up with your own stuff.
And it's constantly evolving, right? So
yeah.
I remember you said, there was something really important that you'd said, which was, there's a think, focus, act, and then there was something that I really wanted to share. It
was so powerful.
It was so powerful that I can't bloody remember what it was, but it was really freaking important.
Oh, I have millions of them.
I think it was, going to someone that helps you. It was something along those lines, because there was that questionnaire that I filled out.
Uh-huh.
And then and those questions were really sort of open-ended questions that made you think. But they didn't,
what I know for sure.
What I know for sure.
Right.
And they kick you in the butt, but they're really important because they refocus your brain.
Yeah. As you know, those 75 questions, they force us, they compel us to go internally and analyze exactly how do I feel about certain things, why do I feel that way about certain things, and what are the areas that are helping me move forward, and what are the areas that are keeping me stuck,
right,
or taking me backwards. And you know what? Acknowledgement is the mother of skill. Right. You can't fix something if you don't know that it's broken. And you know, sometimes cynical people will say to me, you know what, you're just a professional brainwasher.
That's great.
But you know what, if you got a dirty brain, wouldn't you want to wash it?
Oh,
I know I've been guilty over the years. I have been very guilty of having some real shitty thinking. And you know what? Positive thinking may not always work, but stinking thinking is guaranteed to fail.
Right.
You know? So the what I know for sure exercise is intended to help people identify areas of stinking thinking that they have inadvertently got stuck to, got attached to.
Right.
You know, people are self-centered, selfish, can't be trusted. There's an example of stinking thinking.
Right. It's just going to damn you.
Yeah. You know, when somebody comes along with a good opportunity, I'm going to be saying to myself, what's his angle? What's the catch?
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that you become gullible
no,
and fall for everything, but it's be open, be receptive. You know, I mean, whoever would have thought that we would be able to communicate via cell phone? I mean, the iPhone has more technology than the entire Saturn rocket that landed on the moon on the 20th of July, 1969. I mean, come on. And we carry it around and we walk around, we just take it for granted.
Yeah.
You know, I can talk to my grandkids in Paris, in France.
Like that.
And I get real ticked if Skype freezes for 2 seconds. What the hell is going on?
It's really annoying.
You know, I mean, we live in a wonderful time, but it all still comes down to what's going on in the 6 inches between our ears.
Right. I'm gonna ask you one more question.
Okay.
I know you said that Queen Bee has obviously greatly impacted your practice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for someone who, now you have a program called, it's a coaching passport.
It's called the Coaching Passport System, but it's basically, you know, world-class athletes have known for a long time that to get to world-class, they can't do it alone. They recognize that having a coach who cannot do the task anywhere near as good as the athlete can be very helpful, because it's not about what the coach can do. It's about what the athlete can do based on the feedback, input, guidance, and truthfully, questions asked by the coach.
Right.
Well, if it was possible for you to hit a 7-iron 175 yards accurately every time, what would you have to do, Tiger? What would you have to do, Kathryn? If it was possible for you to fulfill your highest dreams and aspirations, what habit would you need to get rid of? What habit would you need to adopt? You know, a lot of people want to get success by crawling out of bed at 10 o'clock in the morning. But a habit of successful people is get up early.
Right.
Get to work. When you work, work. When you play, play. Don't mix up the two.
Right.
You know, one of the people that influenced me to get into coaching is Dan Sullivan of the Strategic Coach. I suppose in many ways he'd be a competitor of mine. And he took 13 weeks off and created the Strategic Coach coaching program. And a lot of people would say to Dan, how the hell could you take 13 weeks off? And he said, oh, pretty well everybody takes 13 weeks off a year. And he, no, I haven't had a vacation in 5 years, for crying out loud. He said, no, but you're taking 13 weeks off, but you're doing it 10 or 15 minutes at a time.
Right.
At the coffee machine, at the photocopier, in the lunchroom. You know, so when you work, work. When you're not working, don't work.
Right.
You know, don't become an 80-hour-a-week workaholic.
Be present in what you're
doing. Be focused for 40 hours. Work 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, and take 3 days off.
And you know what? You actually answered the thing that I said was so important. In that last question, you actually answered what it was, which was you don't need to know what you do. Doesn't require you to be an expert in any of those fields. All you have to be is the coach that guides the person in the right direction and asks the right questions. And
just don't strive to be an expert. Strive to be a student. Be continuously learning. I mean, this experience for me has been great, because I've learned that if I was doing it again, there'd be things that I would say very differently. And there are other things that I'm leaving saying, wow, you know, you kind of captured that. You know, over the course of the last 15 years doing this, you're starting to get it, Ray. You're knowing a little bit about this coaching stuff. Now, don't take it for granted. Keep going, hotshot. Keep learning. Because the moment we quit learning, I know some people would say we're stuck. I don't think we're stuck. The moment we stop learning, we're actually moving backwards, because the world is moving so darn fast. The more we advance into the information age, the knowledge economy, if you ain't moving forward, even if you're on the right track, a train's going to come across and demolish you. So keep moving forward, keep learning, keep growing, keep looking for a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Ray. It was amazing having you on the show. And remember that it's think, focus, act.
God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you everyone for listening. Have a great weekend.